Good evening. Thank you for joining us. If you need interpretation services from English to Spanish, please select the interpretation button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, then select Spanish. Committee members, in the event that we have public comment in Spanish, you will need to select the interpretation button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, then select English. Thank you.
Muy buenas tardes a todos. Los que quieran o necesitan escuchar en español pueden en unos momentos navegar a la parte inferior de la pantalla y apretar el globo y seleccionar español. Y también les notifico a los miembros del comité que si quieren escuchar la traducción de comentarios en español tendrían que seleccionar el inglés en el mismo globo. Gracias.
Good evening, everyone. We're grateful that you're here for the Albuquerque Redistricting Committee. We do have a quorum, and so I want to call this meeting to order. And thank you all, members of the public who are watching on YouTube and who are here in the webinar with us tonight. Thank you for being here. This is a very important process, and we're happy to be here to help to further it. I want to open the meeting by approving the minutes of last week's meeting, April 27th. And hopefully all the committee members have had an opportunity to review the meeting minutes. We do want to let members of the public know that they are available on the website, the redistricting website, if you want to both watch the recording of last week's meeting, April 27th, and you want to review the minutes. Those are there for you to review. So I don't think we need to do a roll call vote, but if members of the committee are ready to approve the minutes, I'll entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
Second.
And by voice vote, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? The minutes are approved. We have included on every meeting a communications update. It's really important to us to have this be a transparent public process. And so we've asked the city council staff to let us know what we're doing to get the word out. We invite members of the public to, tell us how we're doing and if there's anything we can do better. And with that, we'll have staff give us an update on what we've done this week to ensure that we get the word out about this process.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the afternoon of Friday, April 29th, our office sent out a press release with information on the committee and tonight's meeting. We've received some more media coverage from the Daily Lobo and New Mexico in depth just earlier this afternoon. So those would be in addition to the ones that occurred just before last week's meeting. Information and links for tonight's meeting and the committee webpage was included in this week's Office Neighborhood Coordination's weekly e-news. Also on Friday afternoon, our office sent out a MailChimp newsletter sharing the details on tonight's meeting and a reminder that the districtor page was available and just the general links as well to the back to the project webpage. We've increased our number of subscribers up to 51. And again, we encourage people to sign up to receive the newsletter at the project webpage, which is cabq.gov/2022 redistricting. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll stand for any questions.
Do any committee members have any questions related to that? Thank you, Julian. I would just encourage the public to please sign up for the newsletter. You will get all the information and it is available on the website as staff has just mentioned. So please help us spread the word. Committee members continue to share this on your social media platforms and in any other way that you can. Thank you for that. So we'll move on to item C on our agenda. Last week, we did make some decisions about how we would accept maps that came from the citizenry. And so we will call them citizen map number, whatever number. And so we do want to approve the very first map that was submitted. We want to ask the committee for permission to include that on the official website. That would be citizen map number 1 that we did discuss last week. And it was vetted to ensure that it met all of the principles of redistricting. And I just want to make sure that it did meet all the principles. So if I could go to research and polling just to make sure that it was met all the requirements.
Madam Chair, thank you for that. There actually was one small contiguity issue. If you don't mind, I can talk about that and how we have tried to correct it.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen so that we can look at the map together. So in the original, actually, I'm going to pull up the original map. So it was submitted on Districtor. We brought it into our software so that we could look at the stats more in depth. And there was one little piece here in the South Valley, and it's hard to tell exactly where these pieces are connected. We talked, the very first meeting about how these sort of little islands of population in the South Valley are actually connected to the city through what's known as road contiguity. And because the road contiguity isn't associated with any sort of census geography, it's sort of hard to show it in Districtor, which is why I think this happened. But if we turn on the jurisdiction line, which is this green line, you can see that this little island of population is connected to the rest of the city through Airway Road, which means that this piece needs to stay connected to this piece in order to stay contiguous. And so that's the issue. And this affects, it's a really small number of folks that just live in this little piece. But to fix it, we have taken a shot at that. So we've taken this sort of piece along the Rio Grande here, and we put all of that into District 3 so that this piece of the South Valley could remain contiguous. And we put that into District 3. So with that sort of small revision, we'd like to submit this as citizen map number 1.
Thank you. And just one question. So this was, as I recall from last week, based on trying to even out population numbers. What does it do to shift that? Is there any substantive change?
There is. So under the original Romberg plan, District 3, the deviation was 3.61, and District 2 was minus 0.43. And as you can see, with the revision, District 3 is 4.17 and District 2 is minus 0.99. So District 2 gets a tiny bit smaller and District 3 gets a little bit bigger.
Okay. Any committee discussion on whether or not we feel like that's substantive, or if we want to move forward with approval of this map as amended by research and polling? Thoughts?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So we're considering this map for approval for further consideration as to our final submissions to City Council. Then I guess there's nothing final about this other than it's food for thought.
It is another concept map. So we currently have 5. It would be citizen map number 1, which would make it a total of 6.
Very good. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I move approval.
Second.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Now we'll call a vote. We'll do it by roll call. This is just an approval to include citizen map number 1 on the redistricting website.
Council District 1, Committee Member Segura.
Yes.
Council District 2, Committee Member Romero.
Yes, approved.
Council District 3, Committee Member Quesada.
Yes.
Council District 4, Committee Member Reynolds.
Approve.
Council District 5, Committee Member Aragon. I think he might not be on yet. Yes, not on. Okay. Council District 6, Committee Member Chair McGill.
Yes.
Council District 7, Vice Chair Kellerman.
Yes.
Council District 8, Committee Member Buckles.
Sorry, unmuted. Yes.
And Council District 9, Committee Member Pasco.
Yes.
That passes on an 8-0 vote.
Great. So that will be added to the website. Thank you. We'll move on to item number D, which is a follow-up from research and polling and what we requested last week, related to figuring out metrics for each one of the districts and also continuing to review the SVI index, I believe is what we are asking for follow-up on. And so I'm not sure who's presenting from research and polling. Is it going to be you, Brittany?
It is. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Uh-huh.
So one of the things that we were asked for yesterday, as you mentioned, Madam Chair, was to add the SBI range to the stats. And so you can see this is the table that we have already sent to you all and published on the website. So we have added a column for that SBI range. And as we talked about, this is the difference between the average social vulnerability index in the lowest social vulnerability district, the difference between that and the average from the largest district. And so that's the range. We've also added, in anticipation of you all passing Citizen Map 1 to be considered as a concept, we've included the 2 measures of compactness, the percent of the population that's moved to a different district, as well as the SBI range for that. So that's all there. And Petra, I think we're planning on replacing the table on the website with this, or just adding it to the website. And then the other thing, Madam Chair, that we were asked for at the last meeting was to come up with a plan that had no majority white districts. And so we have taken a shot at that, and I can show you what that looks like, and I can sort of talk about some of the implications of this map. So this is what it looks like, and I can talk just really briefly about it. So you can see District 5 looks really similar to how it looks in most of the concepts, where we are holding this boundary at the bluff there. District 4 is crossing I-40 between Coors here and Unser.
I'm sorry. We don't see anything.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just talking to myself, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. I was first of all, I was thinking maybe it's my eyes, but
yeah, no, I hope you can see it now. Yeah.
you can see it. Yeah.
Okay, good. So District 5 looks pretty much the same as in most of the concepts. District 1, as I said, crossing I-40 between Unser and Coors. District 3, taking in the Southwest Mesa and then crossing Central up to I-40 west of Unser. It's really on sort of the east side of the river where things look a little bit different. So what's required, I'm going to start with sort of the heights, because as we know, that's sort of where communities of white folks are sort of concentrated. And so what we had to do was try to sort of unpack those areas. And this is sort of what it took, was taking District 9 and District 8 and sort of spreading out the white population and combining it with some more of the communities of color in the International District and East Central. So District 8 comes around a little more west and District 9 comes around a little more east. That has implications for District 7, which ends up coming a little more north than we've seen in most of the plans. District 4 also was one of the majority white districts. And so to get more populations of color had to come and pull in part of the near North Valley. So District 2 loses that population, and to make it up goes all the way to, this is Carlisle here, to the freeway at Louisiana. Some things to think about with this map is we're pairing 3 incumbents here in District 2. the incumbent from District 3, the incumbent from District 2, and the incumbent from District 7. Also, these districts, as you can see, even without the stats, are pretty non-compact, at least less compact than we've seen in other plans. And, you know, as we talked about, this does sort of split up some communities of interest. You can see here in the North Valley, needing to take some of that population into District 4 to balance the white population, and then sort of splitting the international district a couple of ways. And then, you know, putting part of the international district with the far Northeast Heights, you know, is interesting. And then, you know, the other thing to think about, we talked about, you know, the definition of racial gerrymandering sort of being using race in subordination of all the other redistricting principles. And so, you know, we sort of feel like this is at least on the edge of that. But the other thing to really think about here is that four of the 9 districts are more than 48% white. So we got them below 50%. But they're still, you know, in the high 40s. Another district is 42.5% white. And only one district is less than 35% white. So these are not very strong POC districts anyway, you know, if we're sort of diluting the population across the city in this way. So that's just something to think about. These aren't really like strong districts where communities of color are going to have a really sort of clear opportunity to elect a candidate of their choice. So that's just sort of what it looks like. And Madam Chair, I think that was all of the sort of homework that we had from the last meeting.
Okay. I guess I'll open it up to committee members for any discussion. Do we have any discussion about that particular map? Like it, don't like it? What do you think? It was just we wanted to see what it looked like, and I believe Vice Chair Kellerman may have requested it. So if you have some comments.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And thank you, Brittany, for doing that exercise. That's probably the most radical map we've seen, some of the biggest changes we've seen. And I think that's a good prompt too, to consider what that means for splitting up communities of interest to achieve some kind of other metric. So I appreciate you bringing up racial gerrymandering and just being cognizant of that. I'm interested in what districts, the delegates and the members from districts 2 and 6 think, and also 8 and 9. Just maybe a quick run through there, and it's a good prompt to consider what would it look like to do a radical shift like this.
District 2, did you have any comments?
Apologize, I'm trying to unmute myself. No, I really don't. Radical concept, I agree, probably further afar from the norm from what we've seen in the other concept maps. Helpful to see this information parsed out in a map like this. So I think it's helpful. Thank you for doing it.
I have one, just a couple questions, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Monkey.
Just so obviously pretty extreme example there. A question for, I think Ms. Poss. The current concept maps, they had 3 majority Hispanic districts. Is that correct?
That's correct. 3 majority Hispanic districts, and 7 of the 9 were majority people of color. So, okay,
okay. All right. Yeah. And just for my own, within the rules, Hispanics as a block, is that considered an acceptable, not to get into racial gerrymandering, but people of Hispanic descent, is that a protected class, or is that?
Sure. So in Albuquerque, the Hispanic population would likely fall under the minority voting rights sort of bucket, because so there, as we talked about, there are 3 sort of prongs for determining whether a racial or ethnic minority sort of has that protected status. And one is that their population is large enough to constitute a majority in any one district. And so in Albuquerque, Hispanic populations are sort of the only minority group, or that are large enough to constitute a majority in a district. And so that's one. Then there's another two prongs that require us to do some analysis and whether groups of Hispanics vote as a block, and also whether there's white bloc voting to block the preferred candidate of Hispanics. And we haven't done that analysis, but in general, we've sort of used the rule of thumb that there are currently currently 3 majority Hispanic districts, and we've tried to keep 3 majority Hispanic districts in all of the plans that we've drawn.
Okay, so then just a thought for the group to consider. Are we, even though there's 3 currently, so you're maintaining a status quo, but are we actively protecting the Hispanic bloc with only 3, or should there be, say, 4 or 5, something to balance out, or not 4 or 5, but something that more closely resembles the population of Hispanics in Albuquerque? So that's a question to consider for the group. I'm not posing anything beyond that. Thank you.
Member Buckles, thank you. Member Baca?
Yes, the vice chair asked if I might have any comments on this, and it's really very striking to me, the differences. I believe I have concerns about effectively eliminating District 8 in this kind of a map, and the potential disenfranchisement of the voters in District 8. And so my reaction is that this is, at least in regard to my own district, a solution in search of a problem. And I think it's a fairly extreme map put before us that causes a number of those immediate concerns to me.
Thank you. Member Quesada?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Paz, as mentioned at last week's meeting, would it be possible to zoom in to our each respective districts? It's kind of hard to see where the boundaries lie from this 30,000 view.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
So we can start in District 5. And as I mentioned, this is that bluff that we held in Concept A. So this boundary is really similar to Concept A. I think Concept A has the boundary coming along here. And, because of the large amount of population that District 1 sort of was taking on, we had to take this little piece out. So for District 3, which also includes District 1, the northern boundary of District 3 is I-40, Unser, Central, and then down Coors. And then the eastern boundary is held along Coors here. District 1, as I said, sort of is south of that bluff, and then comes through I-40, Unser, Coors, and Central. So District 2 crosses the river and takes everything east of Coors under this plan. It's kind of a jagged boundary with District 4 here, starting along Montano, coming through sort of the near North Valley here, trying to keep it as much as we can along 4th, coming out to Manal, and then this ditch to I-40, and then coming down 8th Street, Forester to Mountain, and then here north of 2nd Street, this is the railroad tracks, to Lomas. And then, so this is the southern boundary of District 4 with District 2, and then District 4 coming up along I-25. Let's see, so Central then, District 2, the main northern boundary east of I-25 is I-40, going to Louisiana, and then following, following, this is Central here, Constitution, following Constitution, to Carlisle, or sorry, Girard, and then sort of, this is just a precinct issue along Lomas to campus and then back to Girard. And then mostly following Central through Central to Cole as much as we could through downtown. So then District 6 takes sort of south of Cole, Borellis, and all of those places south of Constitution. District 9 starts, sorry, I keep doing that. District 9 starts at San Mateo, stays south of Central, going all the way around. So this is Singing Arrow, taking Four Hills here, and then this is Tramway. So it follows Tramway all the way north to the city limits. And so then District 8 comes south of Tramway, north of Juan Tabo for the most part, and dips down a little bit to Ventura here till it meets up with Juan Tabo. And then District 8 sort of takes this sort of northern part or the eastern part of the international district. So this is Lomas and Louisiana staying north of Central, taking Los Altos to Juan Tabo. And so then District 6 comes and, sort of scoots around here to Juan Tabo. The northern boundary of District 6 is Manal. And then the boundary between 7 and 4 here, this is Montgomery, between San Mateo and, sorry, this is Wyoming. And so that's where that sort of little cut in comes. Other than that, District 7 is bounded by 25 and 40, as it is in a lot of our plans. And then this sort of northern or southern boundary of District 4 is just north of Harper. And I think this is the Bear Canyon Arroyo here. So hopefully that's helpful, Member Quezada.
I'm interested, Brittany, if you could show again District 6.
Sure.
Like, what's the net gain or for District 6? And feels like it's elongated. Like
it is. So sure. So most of our plans, District 6 never goes north of Eubank.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we ended up needing to do, because District 8 and District 9 came in and took so many communities of color from the international district to balance the white populations in the Heights, is that we ended up needing to, and so it turns out there's a lot of white populations, as you might imagine, in North Campus and Nob Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up needing, there's a little more communities of color sort of up in here. And then Borellis that we had to pull in to continue to make District 6 less than 50% white. It was really interesting to me when I was drawing this. I drew 8 and 9 first because I knew 8 was going to be the hardest. And by the time I got back to District 6, it was over 50% white, which was so fascinating to me because District 6 is usually a pretty stalwart community of color district, but so that's what it took, was sort of elongating out to these neighborhoods here.
And what does it do to that SVI index layer?
We haven't done that additional analysis for this plan. We can if it's something the committee wants to explore further.
Okay. I guess what Vice Chair Kellerman asked us to do is an interesting process, and we could continue to do all of this, concepting and looking at different things. This is a radical change, and I'm not averse to change. I do want to talk about the pairing. So explain that again for what it does for those 3 districts.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. So as we've seen in some of our original concept plans, this crosses the river south of Central to Coors, which takes the incumbent from District 3 out of District 3 and puts it in District 2. This here is the sitting incumbent for District 2. But then because we're sort of searching for population after District 4 comes and takes part of the North Valley, we had to sort of sneak in through here and take this district all the way to Louisiana south of I-40, and that ended up taking in the incumbent from District 7.
So, I want to just find out the will of the committee. Do we want to continue to explore this map? Is it something that we want to say thank you and we want to move on, or is it something that we'd like to continue to explore? Member Stoll, you had a comment, and then Member Pasco.
Yes, Madam Chair. I think it's already been mentioned, but my question, living in District 9, would be that are we chasing a non-problem here to start with? And my question also would be from the metrics perspective, how many thousands of people are we displacing in this process, looking at the metrics, if we are going to further look at this through all the metrics, the SVI, how many people would be displaced, because this is very, very radical. But I guess my main question would be, are we chasing a non-problem in the process of this? Because I look at this, especially with District 9 and District 8, that it's basically a non-problem. Thank you.
So, Brittany, if you'd like to answer that, but I'm concerned about the use of displaced. So, can you define that term?
Madam Chair, would you like me to, or Member Stoll?
Member Stoll, like, what do you mean by displaced? Like changing the boundaries? Is displacing them, moving them?
Yes, the number of people that would be displaced into other districts, and how that representation would take place into other districts, under other council leadership and stuff.
Mm-hmm. You're thinking that it's diluting their vote for District 9 and District 8, or their representation?
Yeah, their representation as far as how that works, and how that whole process would take place. That you're completely changing that whole makeup as far as that goes. And I don't want to get into politics, because that's not a place we need to go. But you're completely changing the whole look of that whole area, as well as what it looks like, the area up in Area 4, because you're completely changing the whole area there. It looks like you're displacing thousands of people in that whole process.
So then my question to you, Brittany, is it a complete change and displacement for District 8?
Madam Chair, yes. So again, we didn't run that analysis where we have an actual number, but I've put on the current district, so you can see that there is some substantial change. So this is current District 8, and you can see that District 8 is changed pretty significantly. District 9 as well. District 4 is sort of gaining more population really than it's losing. But yes, and I think, we tend to talk about it as, people who are sort of getting new districts rather than sort of being displaced.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a significant number of folks, even without doing the analysis with the exact number, that would end up in a different district than they're in today.
Thank you, Member Pasco.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank Research and Polling for the work that they did on this map. It's really interesting. The compactness is a huge problem, and Brittany mentioned that. And you know, to get to achieve the goals of this map, they had to make very, very non-compact districts. And I think that runs up against a requirement that we need to meet. I don't think that just from that perspective, I have other issues, but just from the compactness, I think that this is fatally flawed. Well, that's all. Thanks.
And my question to Research and Polling, does this meet the principles of redistricting, this map?
Madam Chair, I would say that, you know, we've sort of demonstrated some viable districts that are more compact. You know, so in that case, I do think, you know, these districts are less compact than they could be. You know, the population is right. You know, I think that as we talked about at the very beginning, you know, the principles of redistricting can often be in tension with one another, and there is no perfect map. You know, I think it's up to the committee sort of what you all prioritize. Do you prioritize, you know, having very compact districts? Do you prioritize keeping communities of interest together? Do you prioritize, you know, not pairing encumbrance? I would say that I do have hesitations about this map because it seems that in service of, you know, one sort of goal, it's sort of subsuming several principles of redistricting. So that is a little bit of a concern to me.
Thank you. Is there any other comments from the members?
Madam Chair, just on your, well, actually, there's two other committee members that raised their hands. So I'll let them.
Let's start with Member Buckholz and then Member Baca. And then I'll go back to you, Vice Chair. You're on mute, Member Buckholz.
That's better. Thank you. Not looking to stifle conversation, so I'm making a motion, but not to stop continued discussion. But my motion would be to not accept this map as one of the maps for our consideration.
Second.
All right. Further discussion. Member Baca. I'm sorry. Member Buckholz, you made the and I see, Brian, that you have your hand up. So, but you made the motion. I guess I would go back to you for any further discussion. And do you want to just scan on what you said before?
Just very briefly, the comments that I made, the comments that were made by the representative District 9 and others, I think I state the case. And obviously our expert is not in a position to make this determinations for us, but some of the concerns expressed by the expert, I think, are additional considerations for me to say that this map seems to be more than what we're asking to be done, and in some ways, as several of us said, a solution in search of a problem. So those would be my rationales for not accepting this, the discussion, and to leave us to the ones that already have been put in place.
Thank you. Member Baca, did you have a comment or no?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, we'll come back to you, Brian Sanderoff from Research and Polling.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. I would like to agree with what Brittany has said about the principles of districting. I also wanted to remind you that within the resolution that the City Council passed, I'm going to quote from it, that the district shall be drawn and shall be reasonably compact. So one question to ask yourself is are these reasonably? And then in another place, and it says, To the extent feasible, districts shall be drawn in an attempt to preserve communities of interest. So we look at what happens here, let's say with the international district, and in the effort to reduce the percent white in districts 8 and 9, what had to be done. And finally, in one other place in the resolution, it speaks to the desirability of the council districts that they shall be relatively compact. So I would take that to mean relative to the other concepts that you've seen. And so you might want to consider those things as you move forward.
Thank you, Member Romero.
Yes, Madam Chair. Before we put it to a vote for the committee, I wanted to hear from Mr. or Committee Member Kellerman, any closing remarks since
Yes.
he was sort of prompted this.
Thank you, Member Romero. Madam Chair, I see this as an exercise in extremes and going at it from another direction to honor one of those principles in protecting communities of interest, which this map does not seem to do. So coming at it from a different direction, what would it look like to, because we didn't have clear boundaries still on the communities of interest, what would it look like to go from another direction and kind of walk back, starting with white majorities? The changes here are too drastic. I'm not hearing any support either from the districts affected or the districts who hold significant communities of interest that we've heard from over the last few weeks. So putting this to a vote, I won't be supporting it, but I appreciate the work done because it sets us a nice boundary of where this could go and what it could render. And then I think we should also circle back now based on this prompt into very clearly defining these communities and look at which concepts are a good starting point to protect them. Thank you, Member Romero and Madam Chair.
Thank you. So if there's no further discussion, we could go to the previous question. We have a motion to not further consider this map. It was moved in second. So we'll just take a vote to see where we stand. Petra?
Yes, so let's see. Council District 1, Committee Member Segura.
I just need a clarification. So if we vote a yes, that means we're not supporting it. Is that correct?
The vote was to not continue to consider this particular map.
Okay, I do not support it, therefore it's a yes.
Council District 2, Committee Member Romero.
Well, I don't think it's aspirational necessarily. I consider it useful information, so I am in support of using it in consideration of our deliberation.
I'll take that to be a no on the motion. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Great. Okay. Council District 3, Committee Member Quesada.
Yes.
Council District 4, Committee Member Reynolds.
Yes.
Council District 5, Committee Member Aragon.
A.
Sorry, was that an abstain?
No, it's an A. Yes.
Yes. Okay, sorry. My audio went a bit funny there. Council District 6, Chair McGill.
Yes.
Council District 7, Vice Chair Kellerman.
Yes.
Council District 8, Committee Member Buckholtz.
Yes.
And Council District 9, Committee Member Pasco.
Yes.
That passes on a 8-1 vote.
All right. Thank you. And your comment, Vice Chair Kellerman, is noted, and we will get back to further discussions on concepts of, making sure that there is one person, one vote, and that people feel like they have adequate representation. So noted. I will go on to the next thing on the agenda, which is to consider maps that were submitted in Districtor. We did have one map submitted that met the minimum requirements. Is that correct, staff?
Yes, sorry. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And we do have the author of that map in the room. So we want to bring them up as a panelist to talk about the map and what the purpose of the map is. So I believe that is you know, and I don't see her in the space.
Madam Chair, Ms. Scourin is now a panelist.
Oh, okay. All right, Ms. Scourin, thank you for being here. And would you like to present the map and tell us why you have drawn it the way that you've drawn it? And we want to thank you for being here.
Yes. Can we zoom in a little towards the, I don't know if you want to do I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with my audio. It's a bottom at the corner with 8 and 7, please. Right. Okay. So that's all I did.
Can we ask you to maybe increase your volume a little bit?
I don't know how to do that. I could put it on the chat, or you can just look at what I wrote when I submitted this. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with the audio.
That's okay. You can go ahead and we can hear you.
Okay. Anyway, all I did is basically move over a couple of equalize somewhat between 7 and 8. I took the area between Comanche and Eubank, Candelaria, and Wyoming, and just moved that from 7 to 8. This is obviously a small change, but it keeps things fairly compact. It's still a fairly major road, and it just equalizes things somewhat between 7 and 8.
Okay, so that's the substantive change that you made from
That's
map
the only
concept.
change I made.
Okay. All right. With that, thank you. If there, does the panel have any questions related to this map? Brian?
Just as a clarification, in case I missed hearing it, and then Brittany, correct me if I'm wrong, that minor change was off of concept A.
Correct.
I don't think that was said. I just wanted to clarify that.
You guys did such a good job that I couldn't make it much better, but I based it on concept A.
Thank you. We saw your memo. We appreciate that.
Yes. Are there any other comments related to the map? Thank you, Ms. Scourin.
Thank you.
I mean, I suppose that we want to talk about this map submission. Do we want to, you know, accept it as Citizen Map 2 for consideration in the process that we discussed last week? And I guess, yeah, I'd like to go to research and polling, maybe just to, you know, ask, you know, if there's any substantive change, what does it do in terms of the metrics? It didn't look like it was a huge change from concept map A or from Citizen Map 1.
Madam Chair, absolutely. Yes, that is a similar change between 7 and 8 that was made in Citizen Map 1. But this Scourin map doesn't also make those other changes between 9 and 7 and 2 and 1. It does do a really good job of equalizing that population a little better. So under concept A, the deviation for District 8 is -4.5 and District 7 is +3.4. And under this map, it's for District 8 is -0.05 and 7 is 1.05, sorry, -1.05. So it does do a really good job of equalizing the population a little better between 7 and 8. I think that, you know, it does take 8 a little further into 7. I think when we were originally drawing concept A, we were trying to make as few changes as possible. That was sort of our least change plan. And so, that's sort of what our thinking was when we were doing concept A. I think this is a really viable alternative. I think it's a good edit to the map. And I think it would be really similar to concept A, obviously on all of the metrics, but I think that it's a good map.
Great, thank you very much. So would we like to have a motion to accept this as citizen map 2?
I move, Madam Chair, I move we accept this as citizen map 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Petra, would you just call the roll?
Yes, Council District 1, Committee Member Segura.
Accept.
Council District 2, Committee Member Romero.
Yes, to accept.
Council District 3, Committee Member Quesada.
Yes.
Council District 4, Committee Member Reynolds.
Yes.
Council District 5, Committee Member Aragon.
Yes.
Council District 6, Chair McGill.
Yes.
Council District 7, Vice Chair Kellerman.
Yes.
Council District 8, Committee Member Buckholz.
You're muted.
I vote yes, and I will be leaving the meeting now for another appointment, but Mr. Powers will be sitting in my place for the rest of the meeting. Good to see everybody, and thank you.
Thank you.
And Council District 9, Committee Member Pascoe.
Yes.
That passes on a 9-0 vote.
Thank you. Also, we'll accept that as citizen map number 2, and it will be added to the website. When we add the minutes of this meeting, we'll also add 2 different maps, citizen map 1 and citizen map 2 for the next time for consideration. Thank you. And I think that was the only map that was submitted in Districtor for this time for consideration. So we now are moving on to public comment. I do want to make sure that everyone who might like to give public comment is understanding that they will need to give us full name and be on the record on camera. Before we do that, we will read into the record the written comments that came in, and then we'll go to the attendees who are in the room. And I'd like to ask Vice Chair Kellerman if you would just read the written comments into the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me bring them up quickly and I'll do that. First, from Virginia Davenport. Hello, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Virginia Davenport, and I am a District 1 voter on the west side of Albuquerque. I would like to thank you for your work so far. I'm writing to you to support the 3 west side districts in map A and D. This process has been beneficial to outline what concerns are relating to each area of the city. Based on the conversation so far, I'm hearing broad agreement on the west side map, and it would be great if we could hear if that is settled and we can set those 3 districts and deal with the other 4. I would not want anyone to get bamboozled, as some felt in the county redistricting process. I have a slight preference for map D, having lived in the Heights. I think that map reflects communities of interest. I'm more concerned about my district, District 1, being settled earlier in the process so we can agree and move forward with the other 4 districts. Melanie Widener says, thank you for ensuring that all our neighbors have vibrant representation in our new election district maps. I ask especially that the redistricting committee take extra care to uplift the voices of our Hispanic, Asian, Native, and Black voters in our community. Our diversity contributes to our strength. Thank you. Eileen Grass says, please allow changes in redistricting to allow equal representation in all areas for all groups, Hispanic, Native American, Black, Asian, and Caucasian. Respectfully, Eileen Grass. Maureen Scouran again says, I'm submitting the plan titled Scourin. I adjusted concept A to make the population count closer to between District 7 and District 8. We just saw in concept A, the population deviation is 3.4% for District 7 and negative 4.5% for District 8. In my plan, the deviation is negative 1.05% for District 7 and negative 0.05% for District 8. I did this by moving the District 7 to District 8 area bounded by Comanche on the north, Candelaria on the south, Wyoming on the west, and Eubank on the east. As in concept A, my plan keeps all incumbent council members in their current districts. It also maintains 3 districts with at least 51% Hispanics among the voting age population. It is a credit to research and polling that concept A is very hard to improve. Evelyn Feltner shares, if you have to make a change to District 7, I prefer concept A's number 3 map with east-west boundaries at Eubank and the expressway, though I'd rather have the boundaries at Morris and Carlisle. This district is where a single-family, middle-class residences abound, and north of Montgomery or south of Lomas or west of Carlisle, they don't. Debbie Conger says, although I am a longtime member of and a past and current board member of the South Los Altos Neighborhood Association, I'm speaking for myself. Our board has not had a chance to discuss this. My comments, the eastern half of the South Los Altos neighborhood used to be in District 9. At one point in the past, the last redistricting maybe, a change was made to put it in District 6 along with the western half of the South Los Altos neighborhood. I suggest the eastern half, east side of Moon, east to Eubank, go back to District 9. We have a lot of challenges in common with District 9 because of the impact of the development and traffic on Eubank from Lomas South to the Air Force Base and the impact of development on East Central Avenue. Madam Chair, that's the summary, the extent of all public comments submitted as written form.
Thank you. Steph, do we have any attendees who are requesting to comment?
Madam Chair, yes, our first speaker will be Joe Gallant. And just a quick reminder for attendees in the Zoom, please use your raise a hand function and we will call on your name to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Joe Gallant. I'm District 1. I would like to thank all the members of this committee for their work. I know this is hard work and that you're taking the time out of your day to do this process justice, and I really appreciate it. I would like to speak a few things that this committee should address. I would like to echo the words of Committee Member Baca in the last committee meeting, that this committee has heard testimony in maps A, D, and E in the citizen maps. And therefore, to narrow the focus of this meeting, I would suggest that concept B and C be considered not in the favor of this committee. The second matter I would like this committee to take action on would be to make a commitment that Hispanic majority districts be at least 51% Hispanic voting age population. That's the 18 plus on your PDFs there. The principle of redistricting expressed by this committee was to ensure that racial voting groups has the opportunity to elect a candidate of their choice. That was the term I heard. And with much of our Hispanic population unable to vote because of immigration status, a simple 50% majority is not enough. All of that being said, concept D has 3 Hispanic majority districts above 53% Hispanic majority voting age population. And additionally increases the concentration of AAPI and then separately Black voters in 2 different districts above what they are now to increase their voting strength. Therefore, I support concept D. I support this committee making a commitment to a minimum Hispanic voting age population to be considered a majority that is above 51% or at 51% at minimum. And I support this committee voting against concepts B and C, as there have been no comments I have heard in favor of those. Thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate your work.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of for this member or this citizen, Mr. Gallant? Appreciate your time. Do we have any other members or any participants who would like to comment?
Madam Chair, we'll do a last call here. No one else has raised their hand to speak. So we'll do a last call. Please use the raise a hand function if you'd like to make comments.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, yeah, looks like that'll conclude public comment.
Thank you very much. That brings us back to community discussion. And we actually have a lot of time for discussion, but I'm not sure that we have a lot to discuss in this meeting. I think we need to make some decisions about how we're going to move forward in these next, I think we have 3 remaining meetings. So we do need to decide if we are still considering all 5 of the original concept maps now, plus the 2 citizen maps that have been submitted to us that are going to be added to the website. So I'd like to have a discussion about where the members think we should go now with the 5 concept maps. Are we yet ready to eliminate some of them so we can narrow down the ones that we want to focus in on? And I guess I would like to open up the discussion as relates to that.
Madam Chair, I'd like to introduce a couple points I think will help us move forward. So first, on your question in your frame, eliminating maps, there does seem to be, as a few members have noted, as we've seen in the polls and as we've seen in public comments now, preference for concept maps A, D, and E. Concept maps B and C have not been noted, referenced, or altered or used in Redistrictor to create new maps. I think there's room now to eliminate and focus on deeper preference with those maps. So getting from essentially 5 maps to 3 and then iterating from there. In addition to that, I think there's a call for any district and any committee member who represents that district who believes they represent a community of interest as a principle to define that community of interest boundaries. And that doesn't necessarily, that doesn't have to be a redistrictor exercise or be a complete redrawing or a set of instructions to research and polling yet. It's really about giving street boundaries and a clear idea of where that area lies. I think that'll help us move forward in the next session, and we can really start to iterate on what potentially will be just 3 remaining maps.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kellerman. Any other panelists like to comment on that frame? Member Romero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to take up on a comment from last meeting, and I guess I wasn't clear. We were asking, it might have been Member Pasco, correct me if I'm wrong, sir, but we wanted a definition for community of interest or a list specifying, who and which these community interests are by name. And it sort of gets at Member Kellerman's question here, I think, in terms of defining those. I didn't know if that was a specific ask and anyone was going to look into it, but just as follow-up to some of the comment on this issue of communities of interest, I offer that and more clarification and fleshing out of that issue.
Thank you. I do believe that, what we're not clear about where we're going with that. What I wanted to find out is what assumptions have already been made about communities of interest and what Vice Chair Kellerman is asking us to do for each committee member. If you feel like there's a community of interest that you're representing in your district, from members of the public to come forward to talk to us about how we define those and that we could bring them forward in the next meeting. Am I articulating your request well, Vice Chair Kellerman?
Madam Chair, yes. We basically asked, or we prompted with what needs to happen or what should happen to help us define. And you just articulated the process here for each committee member that represents a district that has they believe they have a community of interest, just to reset and restart either through a member of that district that they know, somebody reaches out to them, or the committee member themselves, give us a summary, street boundaries, and a name for that community.
Okay. I think that is something that we could request. Member Romero, did you have a follow-up?
Not a follow-up, but I'm prepared to speak to community of interest in my particular district that I think I can offer some insight to when we get to that point, but I'll defer further follow.
Member Stoll?
Yes, Madam Chair. I agree with Vice Chair Kellerman's perspective on the different options as far as that goes. What I would say is I looked at the Citizen Map 1 this afternoon very closely with the metrics in the back of it, and trying to compare that specifically with option A, and you know, how it tweaked option A. And I think if going forward, as we had talked before, if we can get the full metrics that were provided to us earlier this evening, that chart that was provided to us is very, very helpful, looking at all of the different metrics that we have to make our final decision on which option that we'll take. But you know, Citizen Map 1 tweaked option A very nicely, looking at those different metrics as I looked at that this afternoon. So I think having all those metrics laid out the way that they were in that chart is very, very helpful to look at.
Thank you. Member Stoll? Do we have any other comments? I'd like us to maybe if we could get research and polling to bring up maps B and C so that we might be refreshed on what those are again, and if the committee could make a decision about whether or not we would agree with removing those from consideration as concept so that we can narrow down the remaining ones.
So Madam Chair, this is concept B. And if you'll recall, this is the east side of the city is really similar to current districts. So I'll put those on. It's really similar to concept A. The main difference here is that District 2 crossing the river rather than crossing north of Central, between Central and I-40 to Coors, this only has District 2 crossing Central, or crossing the river south of Central to Coors. And that does pair the incumbent from District 3 and District 2 in District 2. So that's concept B. And then concept C was the goal here was to maximize the representation on the west side by having District 2 cross the river both north and south of Central to Coors. And again, that does pair the District 3 incumbent with the District 2 incumbent. And here again, the east side is very similar to concept A and concept B, with the exception of, we talked about this sort of university area. This is where like the children's campus and satellite goes into District 7 instead of District 6. And District 2 under concept C does not cross the cross 25. District 6 actually crosses 25 into part of East San Jose.
Thank you. If we, the will of the committee, I would accept a motion to eliminate from consideration maps B and C so we could narrow the maps that we're looking at going forward.
Madam Chair, so move. I move to eliminate maps B and C.
Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion? Petra, would you call the roll?
Council District 1, Committee Member Segura.
I'm going to abstain. I had audio quality and I did not get the motion.
Oh, I can repeat it for you. The motion is to eliminate maps B and C from consideration.
Oh, yes.
Council District 2, Committee Member Romero.
Yes.
Council District 3, Committee Member Quesada.
Yes.
Council District 4, Committee Member Reynolds.
Yes.
Council District 5, Committee Member Aragon.
Yes.
Council District 6, Chair McGill.
Yes.
Council District 7, Vice Chair Kellerman.
Yes.
Council District 8, Committee Member Powers.
Yes.
Council District 9, Committee Member Pasco.
Yes.
That passes on a 9-0 vote.
So we will remove those maps or archive the maps as no longer be considered as concept maps. And we now have remaining concept mapped A, D, E, and citizen maps 1 and 2. The recommendation that we have for committee members to speak to members of your constituencies and to come forward with some additional information about communities of interest and how we are analyzing those maps, I think is a recommendation that we'd like to make to committee members to be prepared to discuss in the next meeting, which will require us to get out to our constituencies to make that request to the district that you are representing to be able to be prepared to discuss next week. I know that Member Romero was prepared to discuss today, but Member Buckholz had to leave, and I think we want to give people an opportunity to do that homework, do it well, and come back with some sort of presentation from for next time for us to discuss, to be able to sort of narrow down some of those particular things for our districts for the next time. So that's my recommendation, and I would open that up to discussion of the committee members to see if we want to talk about it next time. Member Romero?
Madam Chair, I defer to your guidance on this. I think that's wise that we have a full panel and that we get some opportunity to speak with our community members to be well versed on that and make a good presentation to that end.
And what that pretends is that we actually have to do it. Petra.
And Madam Chair, yes, as you're thinking about this for the next meeting, I just wanted to let you guys know the date for the next meeting is May 18th. So that's 2 weeks from today. So just to have that in the back of your mind.
Thank you very much. So we open to discussion about if that's the way we want to go. Member Reynolds?
Yes, Madam Chair. What can we get a definition, as we were talking about earlier, of the community of interest? So when we're reaching out, that we're following all the same dialogue, and when we're asking for these questions or feedback.
So I think that, we probably want to go back to the enabling legislation for this particular committee so that we know, what our charge is, and then we can go to an actual definition for communities of interest as relates to the redistricting process. And if Research and Polling would like to give us an actual definition of communities of interest, what what the accepted definition of that is, then the committee members will have a better idea of how we need to present.
Sorry.
Yeah, I agree, because if I'm going to send it out to my district, I'd like to follow whatever protocol that we follow, that we establish here, and not just, come off, make my own idea of what I think it is.
So, I think we need two things, and I think we need to all review the enabling legislation again, and make sure that we understand what is there, and then we need the actual definition. So research and polling could give us that definition, and then we will go do our homework before we come back on May 18th.
Sure, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm going to show you the slide that we have on communities of interest. If you want to screenshot that, this is sort of our working definition, that a community of interest is a group or an area with shared characteristics like neighborhoods, language, history, economic, or lived experiences.
And we do have that slide deck from the very first meeting. And I think it would behoove us to go back and review the slide deck, so that as we get into the process, we only have 3 more meetings before we need to make a recommendation. So we do need to start honing in the next meetings about this particular request and how we want to present. So can we make a recommendation that is what we will do for next week? I don't think we need a vote, but just sort of a general consensus that we will agree, and we'll let Member Buckholz know that this is what we're agreeing to do for the next meeting. Is the committee generally in favor of doing that? Great.
Yes.
Madam Chair, as it looks like that is the will of the committee, I can commit that I'll send out an email in the next 48 hours to the committee as a whole with this request, that it'll be on the agenda as a defined agenda item, and that I'll also send you guys the definition so that you have it available, plus the slide from Brittany.
And I also want community members to not feel like their written comments are, being ignored. So there were some definite written comments related to boundaries, and I would ask community members to go take those comments into account from the previous 3 meetings, and for us to, in your presentations next week, to include the comments that we've had from the public in your presentation and address them in some way, so that we can move forward. I'm not sure if there's anything else that I have missed, but if there's any committee members who can add anything that I may have omitted to what we need to do for our meeting on May 18th, please so state.
Yeah, Madam Chair, quickly, if you don't mind, just on this conversation about the committee members submitting their communities of interest, if you as chair and the committee members would like, we can tailor our press messaging and our social media messaging as well to kind of make a call to community members to come participate at the meeting or submit written comments kind of specifically about their communities of interest, if you would like.
I think that would be great, is that that's going to be our specific focus, and also that we have narrowed the concept maps that we are reviewing at this point. So if that can be the messaging that goes out, and I'll ask all committee members on your social media, any other methods that you use to get information out to your members, people in your district, that you would do that. And if you would help us with another social media kit message, Julian, that would really be great, so we can put it on our respective social media platforms. Member Romero.
Just one question to the end of concept maps. I know we're trying to narrow down our focus. Will we be still accepting and contemplating concept maps for consideration?
Absolutely. I don't think that, I think that we have to still do that, because we have only had District R up for a little bit. So I think after next week's presentation, we would, maybe generate some more interest based on what we present to the public. Maybe more people would say, well, now we want to take a better look at A, D, and E, and Citizen Map 1 and 2, and this is how we might like to move forward in those final 2 meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments? I don't see any. I think we have some homework to do. I want to thank the public for the maps that were presented. I know you all spent a lot of time working on those, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you to Research and Polling, and thank you to the staff. Really, committee members, it's up to us to try to generate some more interest. We did have some attendees today, but we need many more people to know about this process and to help us make good decisions. And we are only making recommendations to our elected officials about what we want to do moving forward. But we hope that we're acting in the best interest of the city as a whole. I'll always say again, it's not them versus that. It's not West Side versus East Side, or not any district versus each other. It is a we situation for us to be able to do what's best for the city of Albuquerque. So that's what I'm here for, and I think that's what everybody is here to do. So I appreciate all of you. And you know, hearing nothing further, I think Kayoshi would be happy because we're going to end a little early. I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And just by your voice vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We'll see you guys on May 18th. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Madam Chair.